All right, welcome to a single game cast. Now, it's only a single game because it is actually a very sick series, but with a even sicker single game. So maybe eventually I'll cast the other games that happen in this series. For now, we're going to be getting into apparently one of the best TVZs that happened at IEM Katowice that was not on the main stream. So we did briefly go over it, I think, on the desk, but while I do know the results, I'll keep them a secret for now. I'm just going to put up the story, basically, that was surrounding this game, because that actually really does add a lot to how cool this was. So in the top right, currently down a game, actually, it is Clem, and in the bottom left is Scarlett. So IEM Katowice, happened just a week ago, and the groups were happening, and Group D was the group of death, had Clem, Scarlett, and a lot of other people, and they both were not really doing very hot. They both had not won a series, I want to say, and so Clem was very close to being eliminated. Scarlett as well, I guess, whoever lost, and that was just not what we expected. It was definitely going to be a tough group to make it out of, but there was basically the idea was that anyone could have made it through into the top three. It's Rainer, Maru, Zaun, Beyond, Clem, and Scarlett. But right here, right now, as this game happened, Clem was basically on his last foot, as Scarlett as well. So it was really a battle to see who could actually keep their hopes alive. Scarlett took game one. People really started to suspect that Clem was just going to spiral out of control. It was his first offline experience after his kind of ascension. So he had gone to offline tournaments in 2020 and 2019. But, it's just his Super Saiyan 3 form only came in the COVID era. So this was a real test for him. So that's the backstory. And let's get into this game and what's happening. So I don't actually know exactly what happened in game number one, why Scarlett was able to take the victory. But here we do have kind of normal above board things. So one racks expand and a factory coming down. You have a little Reaper action on the other side of the map as well. And Scarlett is not doing anything suspicious. So just getting the third hatch down, finally getting those queens. The Lings have a little bit more of a job to do. But there you go. And it is a third CC build from Clem as well. No second gas. Clearly there are downsides to getting a 3cc build going, right? But if you can get away with it, if there's nothing the Zerg can do to punish it, then it is certainly the preferred way to go. Not just because it's obviously getting away with greed, but to even some people's expectations, it's kind of the way to get away with just playing an even footing TVZ. If you go for a 2cc 111 into the 3rd CC, the expectation is that you have to kill, like, let's say 10 drones. All right, that's what a laser told me. So don't trust me, trust that guy, right? And if they don't, then the Terran's actually behind. So if they get away with a 3rd CC, it's not even that they're getting away with murder here. They're not getting away with this huge boon of economy that the Zerg player now is the one that's desperately trying to catch up to. Actually, it could even be perceived as they are getting away with a standard, even footing for the first 6 to 7 minutes. So they'll still have their 7-minute attack, or close to it, depending on their opener, depending on their follow-up. But, ooh, look at this. A little bit of an attack to start things off. 2 Hellions and a Reaper. Trying to take advantage of a lower number of Lings. Scarlett does manage to defend rather well, but she was getting some scouting. Saw perhaps the Hellions not really in a threatening number, and so didn't try to make that many Lings. And that's a correct call on the Zerg side, right? You don't have to make 20 Lings to guard against 6 to 8 Hellions, then you don't. But Clem tries to take advantage of it. Ends up getting another drone there too. And as I was saying, for the 3cc build, it kind of depends on how you follow up, right? Clem did make 4 Hellions, so it wasn't right into a 2-1-1. It is eventually into a 2-1-1. So still hitting around 530. Actually getting the multitasking going. Scarlett won't feel any real pressure until those 2 medevacs are out. And then even then, that's only 1 attack, so that's still not a lot of pressure for a professional Zerg. When Clem's in charge, well, it can be. For Scarlett's sake, getting that drone count up. Again, all things considered, deflected the kind of surprise Hellion attack, as good as possible. Baneling that's going to finish with the lair, so it can instantly start up centrifugal hooks. No evolution chambers, though, so I do wonder what our intentions are for technology. 4th base is going to go down, properly protected, expecting that trademark Scarlett creep spread as well, starting to be pushed out. Clem with only 4 Hellions, and then reduced down to 2, like obviously is not going to have much to say about the first 5.5 minutes of creep spread. But with the 2 medevacs coming through, that's probably one of their main goals. You don't expect a good Zerg player to falter against the 2 medevacs. They're not going to lose the game, but it can start helping to clear up this creep spread. So 1-1 is now on the way for our Terran player. Scarlett just now grabbing those evolution chambers right into a Hydralisk den as well. So there's the technology intent, I suppose. Queen's gonna go for the mass transfuses. She doesn't actually want to use her lings. Filtering through those queens. Might have gone on a conga line that actually could have killed Scarlett. So good holding the line defense there with the mass queen. Hatchery's now almost up. 65 drones is a decent place to be, but obviously wants to bump those numbers up a little bit. There we go, 11 more drones. Exactly what she needs to do. And starting to spend that money as well. But Clem happily on 3 bases, creating the Great Wall to stop any easy peasy run-bys. Probably will lower that just to get his own attack across the map sooner. But we'll get there when we get there. I actually say that Clem might not be planning on doing that 7-minute attack. I think he is, actually. But, we have seen, especially Clem, in fact, go for even more of a push towards practicing and actually using the late game versus Zerg, getting that, let's say, 7-minute or even 6:30 4th command center. Not actually what's happening here, just wanted to throw that out. I do know that Clem, prior to Katowice, was experimenting a lot more with, again, say, 6:30 4th command center, very much pushing to the late game. This is 7 minutes, which has just become not quite standard, but is, I feel like, where the matchup's going, where StarCraft 2 actually is going into the future, I suppose. Just more and more macro, especially as long as the maps encourage a default 3 or 4 base situation. So 2nd factory is going to be thrown down, actually dedicating to that +1 armor for his vehicles, even though we do still have some tank production. Tanks benefit from it, but so do the medevacs and widow mines, which I imagine will be added soon enough. Just again, kind of the real story right now. Okay, besides Scarlett just having a huge bank right now. Wow. She is not worried about a big attack anytime soon. There we go, 15 Hydras made. But I was going to say, the big story right now is how much can Clem control Scarlett? Can Clem stop the 5th base from coming up super easily? Well, not so far. Can Clem clear up a lot of the creep spread? Can Clem make sure that she is not the one attacking into him, right? And suddenly having a maxed out Zerg army. And the little micro tricks that come along with it, such as Baneling snipes, well, that's always cute. That's always cool. But finally, we have a legitimate attack. Scarlett was kind of late to producing those Hydras, but they are out now. Do we have a Lurker Den? No. No, we do not. So that is a bit worrying. Not that Ling Hydra Baneling isn't a composition, it's just that I think Zerg players do feel a bit more secure when they actually have Lurkers. This still relies very much on getting us around, on having that creep to help you out. We got a little bit of economic damage on both sides, really. Banelings roll through the supply depots, kill 5 SCVs. Not really all that important. Ditto on the 4 drones. Not a big loss yet. Scarlett's going to come around for a huge surround, actually. A lot off of creep, of course. And that is a problem, but the tanks get taken out, and the medevacs are going to have to pick up eventually, although I might have spoken too soon, actually. No Banelings. Marines in the top of those Hydras, and the Hydras are trying to win the DPS battle, but they need more Lings to support, and damn, that was an awfully close battle. There's a lot of other situations where there's not as many Lings. There's a few less Hydras, and suddenly Clem wins right there. That has absolutely happened in TVZ. But fortunately, Scarlett had just enough trickling in, just enough Hydra DPS actually outputting to win that particular battle, or well, at least keep it even, I should say. I don't think anyone necessarily truly won that one. That was a bit of a wash. Scarlett successfully defends her 4th base, successfully deflects the attack, and also trades out, right? She did lose a lot of resources. Obviously, Banelings, of course, and then the Hydras as well. Expensive units, but that's something that a Zerg player, you know, has to be a little comfortable with. They are used to being the ones in the red for the resources lost. Clem is continuing the attack. He's not going to stop anytime soon by the looks of this. That's actually a bit surprising, but with enough tanks to continue anchoring pushes, finding another abusive spot as well. Hoping that Scarlett was not able to rebuild in time. I don't think that's actually true, however. Clem forced to evacuate, sacrifice a tank. With 1 tank gone, that's not really a lot left over, and Scarlett would eventually be able to overwhelm this. The issue for her is, can she do it well? Can she actually take a fight that she's winning and not just continuing to bleed out on the resources? It is kind of a funny, I think, situation right now where Clem knows that he's very potentially overstaying his welcome, and Scarlett knows that she could really take a bad fight potentially, so they just kind of agree not to do anything. That's what it feels like. And as long as Scarlett's hatchery is under attack, then, you know, more power to her. So Clem is on 4 bases, going on to a 5th, still producing double tanks, now adding on the attack. I'm actually quite surprised now seeing that he has done nothing but build tanks, that there was... Oh no, the Viper's helping that hatchery get sniped. That's not what she wanted. But finally, the break happens. Clem just completely disengages. And she is going to get cracking on those rocks by the looks of things. Also on the right side, anticipating a little multitasking action. Well done by Scarlett. Gonna clean that up, no problem. And this left side attack also not long for this world. Not for very long. Tank's gonna get cleaned up. Whew. All right, then. I actually forget what I was talking about. That hatchery getting sniped with the Vipers still getting juice from it was too funny not to talk about. But all right, what is the situation right now? So back to 4 bases. 5th has to be rebuilt. Not a lot of creep spread on the left side directly next to her hatchery. On the right side, I'd say kind of a similar situation. All it takes is 1 scan from Clem to clean up this right side and have those tanks once again in an abusive position. So Scarlett, you know, I think she knows that she has to be worried about that. She would love to actually have a little bit of aggression, a little bit of a run by, something to interrupt Clem's macro cycles, to interrupt his continuous attacks. Not necessarily getting that chance, but Clem also trying to transition at this point. So he's basically mid-transition. The worst thing he could do was think that he could continue to attack, lose a battle, not badly, but still, and then actually be overwhelmed because so many resources are going into ghosts. Good defense on the Nidus Worm in the main. Of course, Scarlett's got to try that, but it's also a bit of a distraction on the front lines. Those tanks a bit late to sieging. Blinding Cloud does come down, but the bio forces in good enough numbers to push this back, so not a super big deal on the left side. On the right, Banelings do roll in, but only get to have 2 SCVs. Half a command center, I suppose, but not actually killing. It's the most important thing. And a bit of a waste, perhaps, of the Banelings, perhaps. I do think there is a very strong chance that Scarlett would have found 20 SCVs or, you know, 20 Marines, something like that, or over here actually killed more tanks or more bio. But not the case. So what is the upgrade situation as we get kind of into proper late game TVZ? 5 bases to 6, lurkers versus ghosts. 3-2, armor only just started for Clem versus 2-1. Oh, okay, 3. So Carapace is already done for Scarlett. Adrenal glands as well. That was the priority for her. Now we have, once again, more emphasis on just the proper creep cleanup, opening avenues later on for Clem, and not just opening avenues for an attack, but honestly, at this point, Terrans would find themselves more so on the defensive, just making sure that a player like Scarlett wouldn't get creep spread on the front of Clem's bases, because that is absolutely possible. Absolutely. Nice snipe on the Viper. Definitely a high value target. Looks like the Nidus Swarm was rebuilt. Or another one was built. Okay, that makes more sense. So 2 Nidus Worms, doubling the chances that it gets popped up. Or simply putting 2 Nidus Worms in vastly different locations. Clem doesn't have sight on literally everything. Although with the sensor towers, he has sight on quite a bit. 4 more command centers coming down. A 3rd factory too. Clem had been practicing a lot of Supreme late game TVZ leading up to Katowice, so I'm glad to see that he's able to utilize it rather well. We didn't necessarily get an answer on who was the best late game TVZ player, but since Maru did last the longest, I'd still say that title goes to him, even though he ended up faltering against Cyril. But anyways, big attack from the right side. Scarlett's Lings actually chasing after those ghosts was temporarily a bit scary, but I think the ghosts managed to escape at least through the Medivacs. There you go, hot pickup, nothing to actually kill those. Tanks on the right side I think were just destroyed there, but a planetary was going to be a tough nut to crack for Scarlett, even though she has a couple of lurkers. They weren't quite ready to go. Scarlett's half army also on the right side. Not able to find a weakness, but left side maybe again is where it's really about. Ghost trying to get those snipes, Scarlett trying to deny the snipes. Classic TVZ back and forth. Unfortunately for Scarlett, does lose some of those lurkers, but she has quite the bank. She's been on a rather healthy economy. It sucked that she lost this one base, right? But that was kind of the extent of it. She had an army, she had a transition, she had her upgrade, she had her drones. So replacing a hatchery wasn't the worst thing in the world. And now we see a typical Zerg bank in the late game. And more upgrades on the way, finally finalizing that +3 melee, Clem finalizing +3 armor, getting building armor as well. High Staccato tracking should eventually even come in, because, you know, kind of why not? There's going to be a lot of why not upgrades coming in. I would not be surprised at all if we saw the Medivac upgrade too, which, funnily enough, I recently talked about, but again, to reiterate, is for what it does, a very good upgrade. But it just is not an upgrade people would consider necessary. And there's high staccato tracking. Might still see more armory upgrades also come down. +2 definitely more important to get to, kind of get that off your list, but adding +3, yeah, worth it for sure. So there you have it. Attacks on the left side from a single lurker, but a single tank clears it up. It's more important about this big ol' attack to the middle, however, and this was actually very awkward for Clem, who clearly was not expecting the attack. His army was split in half. Half of his army, in fact, was just being corralled by the Lings, not actually attacking. He barely gets back to his planetaries, however, and the planetaries might be why Clem holds. One of the planetaries does go down alongside the bio, alongside the tanks, but on the left side, the bio army was able to hold, and enough goes are here to actually save the day, clear up the lurkers, even clear up some of these overseers, which, hey, eventually do get expensive. Eventually you can find a Zerg player realizing they actually don't have any more overseers left, so actually a fairly good snipe. 18 SCVs went down, planetary went down, and a large chunk of Clem's army went down too, including very expensive and slow building tanks, but it looks like the hold was good. Good enough. That could have been so much worse. So much worse. The fact that 50% of his army was here, 50 here, and then like 20% was kind of just like running into Lings, not even attacking, was a terrible start for Clem's engagement. But he manages to pull that out and actually survive, because that's really what's happening. We are Tropic Thunder levels of survive. As Clem, once again, thrown to a bad place economically, just doesn't have that bank. You know, you don't really expect the Terrans to have the same type of bank. So losing one base, maybe not the biggest deal. If it does cascade, if it does snowball, it happens rather quickly. Nidus Worm's in the back, actually a big distraction, but Clem has to focus on the front as well. No planetary to hope to defend. Lings get into the SCVs. Banelings roll into further bases. The Nidus Worms are cleaned up, however, so Clem is going to hold, I guess, on his production side, but on that front side, another base has been sacrificed. And hold on here, I was actually wrong about that. The second Nidus Worm actually gets up, but the ghosts are here, and the ghosts are good in number as well. Plenty of snipes go down. That actually turned a little bit on Scarlett, in fact. The lurkers did not do that much damage in the main base. They didn't actually kill a lot of production. They didn't find a bunch of marauders going face first into them. They didn't even get this armory. So that was actually not the best, but everywhere else is going really well for Scarlett. She's killed a bunch of bases, getting another base as well. That planetary is going to fall. The SCVs fall as well. The Marines might fall to the Banelings, and this one orbital is absolutely going to burn down. I don't think it'll be repaired. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. And that is a lot of mules now missing from Clem's late game. But Scarlett, I do believe, is starting to run out of juice, right? She actually, literally, she has to take time to not just reproduce the army, of which she no longer has that big of a bank, she also has to wait to produce banelings and lurkers, and she can't do that quick enough. So the couple of banelings here were definitely not enough. The Marines shoot them down. No lurkers behind it either. It means that the Marines can now take on the Hydras, kind of reminiscent of the earlier engagement 10 minutes ago. And this time, Scarlett actually has to disengage. Even losing a lurker on the backside at this point, after she depleted her bank, is a very big deal. That looked absolutely terrible. If you kind of zoom out, just watch the minimap and you see red in every nook and cranny of Clem's side of the map, you pretty much just assume that the Zerg player is winning at that point. But not actually the case. Clem, once again, able to stabilize, gets a couple of those victories where it was least expected, like in the main, against the lurkers, and actually, I guess maybe evens out the resources trade. Rather, not even out is an improper term, right? But basically makes it very good for the Terran again, like it should be, but was probably in question during the actual engagements. But everything kind of calms down. You can take a breath. I can take a breath. And Clem is back on at least one mining base stable. Could probably slowly leapfrog to another. Scarlett, as I was saying, she depletes her bank. She has to take a second to literally rebuild some of these, cocoons, right? The lurkers and the banelings. But she's had her economy up and running. So really all it takes is a moment for her to suddenly remax, and another moment for her to start accruing a bank. So that's already starting to happen. Whereas Clem is very much more struggling to get maxed out, to get to another bank. But his army is undeniably good. Scarlett might have this supreme economy to do all the things I just listed, but it means that she's down 30 army supply. So, if Clem's using the army correctly, which is always in question, then the army is better. But even amongst the pro-Terrans, I'm talking correctly as in the Ghost responds to the Lurkers, not to the Massling Baneling. Right? That's usually what happens when things get really crazy in late game TVZ. You start to see even the best Terrans start to have the wrong armies in the wrong locations. And that's why Maru is still considered one of the best late game Terrans, because he almost never has that happen to him. Almost never. Lurker is actually not finding the best time on this right side engagement. The Ghost took down a few from the get-go. The Banelings were rolling in single file off of creep. That's not too good either. And suddenly Scarlett, who was probably really feeling the victory, she was like on the verge of victory, suddenly realizes, wait a second, I'm on the defensive again. So momentum has really shifted. And by Clem's attack, Clem is also able to finally get some bases up and running. Is this on hold position? What is happening here? Is she waiting for it to... Okay, we'll get back to that later. Maybe she's waiting for like 20 SCVs to be transferred there. 13 drones go down as Scarlett, wanted to defend this base, thought that she probably could, but then suddenly, before you know it, 10 lurkers go down, the Ghosts are still alive. You just have to sacrifice the base. And that is a base that is going to become increasingly more important. Hardwire in this type of game is running out of minerals very quickly. Another good spot for Clem on the Nidus, where I'm not going to let that ruin his day, ruin his chances. But Scarlett's always using it as also a distraction. It's great if it pops up, but it's not the end-all be-all of her strategy. So she takes down a defensive planetary. That is a bit annoying, I would say, for Zerg players, though, right? So they're like, yeah, okay, that opens up for future endeavors, but it was only the first step, and it did cost me a lot of banelings to do so. So we'll see if that actually ends up being worth it. A few tanks will not be enough against Massling. Okay, I take that back. That was 4 or 5 tanks, but still. Massling's great at dealing with those. The Lurker did finally start attacking. And the SCVs were simply pulled away, so no big deal there. No big deal. No big deal. Okay. Whew. I was afraid for the Ghost for a second. Oh, we just have not had personal cloaking this entire time. That is a kind of important upgrade. Terran players are usually pretty quick about it. Couple of Ghosts going around the bend here. It's a very annoying bend. Want to get the snipes, but also be very mindful about how much Zerg is behind this. Fortunately for Clem, he had such a surplus of orbitals. And now at 5, that's still a pretty good number, right? That there are enough scans to not just actually literally scan the burrowed units, but to scan ahead and see what exactly is about to attack them. That's really important in the late game. Another good response from Clem. Scarlett is going to lose another handful of lurkers, but Clem, you know, he's down to kind of having to focus on one particular location of the map, left or right. His right side is at this point just not even really defended, I would say. It could be weak again to a Ling run by, but it's something that you kind of have to give up, right? You know, if there's a planetary and 3 tanks and 2 liberators, well, Scarlett's gonna have a tough time breaking it, but once she does, it's gonna be very difficult for a Terran to replace it for multiple reasons. Not enough bank, not enough time, not enough, like, creep removal, literally encroaching on Clem's, oh, what was this, his 3rd base? So, yeah, very tough. That is a feisty number of tanks, and the ghost count is great as well. 18 ghosts, so this ended up backfiring on Scarlett, who, yeah, if she had attacked when there was only 5 tanks, is probably, yeah, gonna bust it, but Clem was actually there to hold on. Sensor towers aplenty as well, so even as that does burn down, despite the mule to try and repair it, Clem still has a lot of vision, and now Clem actually feels very courageous, gonna move on to creep, perhaps a little bit too courageous. This isn't gonna work out. The ghosts have to be picked up, and those Vipers were looking for the parasitic bomb. Not gonna be able to find it. It would have been deadly for at least 2 or 3 of these medevacs, but for Clem, gets the heck out of Dodge fast enough. Now as a planetary, now as an extra command center, trying to expand quickly enough to actually get it set up, right? Which Scarlett ditto wants to expand as fast as possible, get 20 drones mining as fast as possible, because we're getting to a point, 26 minutes on hardwire, where you're also thinking about stealing your opponent's minerals. So, of course, the Zerg player is the dragon hoarding minerals and gas. They need to do that. But they also would love the additional bonus of just stopping Clem from having, you know, 4,000 extra minerals in his pocket. So I think, what, the first 4 or 5 bases of Scarlett are already mined out. Her 6th is getting mined out as well. That is actually a great concern for the Zerg. 20,000 resource difference. Wow, some of these last engagements have not been going well at all for Scarlett. At all. This one included, actually. Kind of getting funneled in there against a surprising number of tanks. The ghosts were quick enough to respond and get a couple of last-second snipes and a cute abduct. Did not really make that better for Scarlett. I do love what she's adding, however. We got Corruptors on the way. I don't think we have a greater spot. Oh, we do. Oh, well, let's see if that is for Broodlords, though. It could be, actually. Oh, you know what? It is. It is, 100%. So not just because I saw them made. So the reason I was kind of hesitant about Broodlords was because ghosts are all-encompassing in their late-game use. They defend against most things. They EMP the Infestors, they snipe the Lurkers, Ultras, and Broodlords. But, one, there's a dance. There is a dance. The Infestors fungal the ghosts, and even if some of them get EMP'd, the ghosts still can't snipe, and then the Broodlords get to do their thing. That is the dance right here, right now. The other thing that I wanted to go, oh, okay, this makes sense, is that now that the map has kind of reduced itself to a single pathway, it's no longer about left, right, center. It's mostly about the left. Broodlords are no longer, like, weak to their one, not their biggest weakness, but one of their bigger weaknesses. So their biggest weakness is they can't shoot up. But their second biggest weakness is that they aren't mobile. They don't respond to things very quickly. So if you reduce the map to one pathway, then Broodlords can actually just situate themselves. And the Zerg player can also focus on the spellcasting dance that I was just discussing, which if they're responding to a billion things, is a lot more difficult. Now that was not a fantastic start, as a bunch of Broodlords do get sniped immediately, but we do have them still encroaching. The amount of bank that Scarlett had was enough to build a feisty number of Broodlords. Now down to 8, however, that's a lot more manageable, but the Ghosts are also not getting their snipes lately. The Broodlings are coming in, the Infestors are coming in as well. They're looking for the Fungals if they can, but they actually get EMP'd instead. However, there is a Fungal on top of the Ghost, the tank's getting destroyed, the Planetary gets destroyed, and suddenly Clem is on full retreat, not actually able to stop the Broodlord onslaught, and combined, of course, with the Lurkers, with the Infestors, with even Lings. All it takes is a Ling just scratching a Ghost's pinky toe for the Ghost to stop his snipe. And Scarlett, with a really, really good strategic decision, because it required a lot of things to actually make that work. Above all, was the decision to say it has reduced down to kind of this base being most important. And if I could just build a certain number of units, I will be able to break him. If she had made 8 Broodlords instead of the original like 16 or whatever it was, she probably loses the fight and loses the game, right? But because she had enough to actually break through really quickly too, she didn't just kind of trickle in these things, Clem was not necessarily as prepared as he could have been. If he had seen Broodlords from across town and had minutes before he had to respond, we're talking about a very different battle. So really nicely done by Scarlett. It took her entire bank. It was in some ways a bit of a gamble, but it worked out. And now Clem has a very different game to play. Before, it was so much about the action. It was so much about the multitasking. Now, it is way more about the tiny micro battles on this left side. We have the fungals, but the snipes had already come down. We're down to just 5 Broodlords at this point as well. Scarlett is going to rebuild 7 of them. I was gonna say 2, probably not too worth it, but 7 looks a lot better. And we also have the advancement of the Zerg Stag defense, also quite important. The Spore Crawler is going to help give that vision, stop any of these kind of pesky, like, what-if Vikings is what I'm going to personally call them, because Terrans do not expect big things from our Vikings. We just don't. So maybe they get a couple of shots, maybe they don't. And, well, the Spine Crawlers could help out in the more obvious ways. They probably won't, but they could. Broodlords are deciding once again to go after it. That is a really good-looking clump of ghosts for Scarlett's eyes, right? She saw those ghosts on that ramp, all types of clumped up, and went, hells yeah, let's do this. Let's actually fungal those ghosts. Now, some of them did get some snipes. The Broodlords did not all survive the encounter, but 8 of them did, with the Lurkers still actually slowly encroaching behind them as well. And Scarlett advances her territory. She is now fully capable of mining this base. Before, she was kind of on the back end and Clem was on this end, right? Now she's taken the entire plateau. She actually can mine from the hatchery. And of course, you know, there's other things to account for in this game, I suppose, like creep spread, like maybe a nuke coming through, right? You know, it's so much more about this base. It is pretty quickly has come down to the fight over one base. Scarlett, you know, she just basically, Clem did not try to contest her other bases. He needed this base faster than I think Scarlett even needed it to a degree. So there was no contest on the other side of the map. So now it's more like Clem knows he has to win a big battle. Because at this point, I'm not even sure that he thinks he can take that base again. He's just happy that he has this base. He's happy he's mining at all. But I don't know if he'll ever truly expect to clean up this army and mine from this. I think he just is hoping that the battle goes really his way, which it absolutely can. Scarlett's army supply is looking better. She's got a couple of upgrades on her air army as well. Remember, for Broodlings, their projectile is their air attack, and when they're on the ground as Broodlings, it's the melee attack upgrade that gets affecting them. Not that it's usually the most important dynamic here. It's a lot more about the ghosts and the fungals. Fungals on the right side of the ghosts don't quite stop all of the snipes, but the Broodlings do come in. Ling's now flooding it as well. Ghosts have to run away back to the planetary as the tanks barely get saved. Actually, not so much. Had to be let go because the Corruptors were hot on their tail. Ghosts getting fungaled, getting hit by the Banelings. Only a half of them are surviving, but that's still a good number of ghosts, actually. There was even more off to the right side. Some of them even getting abducted, ensuring their deaths, but the snipes are still happening, actually. The energy is now running low. This is one of the last fights, possibly, as Clem is once again forced to disengage, but a funny effect has been happening for the last, like, 15 seconds. The ghosts have actually been out DPSing the Broodlings because half of the Broodlings were killing the planetary, so the ghosts actually are barely still alive. Full energy medivacs barely contributing to this fight, but just enough to keep the very important ghosts alive and firing, whether it's the default fire or the snipe. But finally, Clem is actually forced to get behind a Thor, and that Thor might actually be the true savior. That Thor could actually do tremendous amount of damage. That could take on Broodlords as long as it's protected by something, usually Hellbats, right? But in this case, it's just a few ghosts, a few Marines, and now the medevac almost goes down to the Spore. A little too energetic about chasing down those Broodlords. This Thor is Big Papa Thor at this point. He's actually so important to this engagement. Clem holds barely with 5 ghosts and a Thor and any trickle of Marines that he can afford, which isn't much. It isn't. He lost the planetary. He's going to replace it with an orbital, and there's still a lot of very important mining left to be done on this base and this base. But we are very close to mining out entirely. 6 more infestors, 3 more broodlords. Scarlett trying to go basically all in on this air ID, I suppose. It is air, but it's so much more about the fungals, right? And I don't think she's wrong about it, but I wonder if it's going to work. Oh my gosh, Scarlett, 51 drones. Of course, not all of them actually mining. Some of them are going to be killed, and hell, eventually I think some of them will be sacrificed. A fungal being used on only 4 or 5 Marines might look a bit silly, but in a game like this, it's actually quite important. Lurkers getting sniped by the ghosts, who, of course, right now, they're one of their best benefits, amongst many things, is that they're energy-based. You know, if they had like 1 ammo, if they had 1 shot with their snipe, they're already useless. And that's not how StarCraft works, so we're gonna call them spellcasters, even though they're more complicated than that. It's about the spellcasters, it's about the ghosts versus the fungals. The Thor is so impactful too. It's usually, you know, a bit comical seeing it late game as a bio player, but it is actually so impactful. Scan reveals that 1 infestor as well. EMP on about half the infestors, but then loses 2 of the ghosts. Oh, that is pricey. Oh my god. Fungal damage isn't really what Clem's concerned about right now. He's got medevacts with energy. But, I mean, that might not be forever. The Corruptors could even start picking off the medevacts. Snipes on everything that you can get. Fungal is dodged. Another medevac about to fall. I mean, it could be really impactful in this game. Medevac energy. Ghost number is still pretty healthy. 11 ghosts. Like, yeah, Clem occasionally finding the resources to build them again. It's a crazy, crazy game. I love these, like, just 3 or 4 Marines trying to sneak their way around the corner to stop the drones from mining. Is so amazing. I mean, if Clem didn't need his scans, and plenty of them, I wouldn't even have minded if he had tried to steal minerals at any point. Not that I'm not sure that he could have, but like literally, you don't get the minerals, but neither does your opponent. If you mule drop in their face. Hatchery goes down. Drones, long distance mining if they even want to try to mine. And they aren't. I think at this point, Scarlett just knows that she can't let Clem have this base. She needs it too. She needs minerals, absolutely, but she also just can't let Clem have it. Oh, the fungal is so scary. But if there's no follow-up, then it's really not that bad. I mean, hell, even a fungal on the medevacs would be scary. I think it would kill at least 2 of them. Another ghost just cried out, so I assume he died. But some broodlords are also starting to fall here. 2 of them, at least, thanks. Oh, behind! The infestor stuck around and went from the behind fungal. Oh, that did not lead to the entire loss of the ghosts, but that could have been even more clutch, actually. That could have been game ending. She's gonna try it again. The trick is staying out of the missile turret range. Like, what the hell? Oh, and actually the ghosts have to be like, what, like here? For that fungal to actually reach. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah, she got the medevacs! 2 of them do explode! The 3rd one was barely healthy enough to survive. Another ghost gets targeted down. I do want to point out that a lot of the times the broodlords are focus firing on top of one thing as well, something that a lot of people would not be thinking of in such a game. We once again have the Thor micro. He's going to try and shoot at the broodlord and then escape, but it's such a dangerous thing to do with fungal. With corruptors still available, well, I say it, is there actually the case? No, there's no corruptors. There's no queens. There's actually nothing that shoots up and like except fungal. Oh my god. Good save on that Thor too. The tanks for siege. So, you know, the friendly fire is now also potential consideration for this game. Good EMP, by the sounds of it. Yeah, I got a decent number of the infestors low in the energy. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. All the ghosts moving together is making me sweat, guys. I know, oh god. Oh man. Good EMPs. These are actually entirely depleting the fungals. Now, they aren't killing the infestors, so that's always something to worry about. If you're losing the ghosts, and only EMPing the Infestor is not quite the trade that you're looking for, but here's the spread actually. Clem, he thinks he can take the fight. He actually spreads his ghost thinking that he's got it, but so many ghosts start to go down. Oh my god, only one ghost is left. Oh, two, no, one. Okay, one is left. Is he built any more? There's another one somewhere. I don't know where the hell that it is, but the Thor is also super low. No repair on that one, but Marines come forward, and suddenly only 5 Brood Lords, a handful of Infestors that have absolutely no energy. There's 12 Infestors and no energy. Nothing, not even a fungal, but the Broodlings come in. The Thor comes in with the micro. Oh my god, but the Brood Lords actually send that pack in. A second Thor, second Daddy Thor. Gonna save the day. That's so healthy. That is so healthy. That actually could take on the Brood Lords by themselves. Oh my god, here comes that ghost. I don't know where they were. The 2 ghosts come forward. One still has another snipe. 3 Broodlords make that 2 Broodlords. And the Infestor is now barely having enough for energy for a fungal. Try to fungal some mechanical units in a desperate attempt to do some damage. 1 more ghost remains, but the fungal stops from getting the snipe and the target fire. No target fire. The medevac actually picked it up. Clem anticipated the Broodlings to attack that ghost. Oh my god, the amount of micro that these 2 are displaying right now is absolutely insane. Oh, Clem pushes Scarlett back off of the last mining base on the map and takes a little bit extra. Takes some of the fights. Of course, his hatchery didn't really matter at that point, but Scarlett down to just Infestors. It's all that she can afford. 5 more are on the way, but I mean, Clem, he's got the EMP upgrade. So you are really playing with fire. She's gonna have to, like, you know, 2 or 3 hotkey these Infestors to make sure they're never entirely clumped up. She never got Neural Parasite. No, she did actually get Neural Parasite. Oh man, I'm surprised we didn't see any ghost shenanigans. EMPing their own ghosts. She might go for the Thor, right? I mean, you know, basically any of the mech units are actually pretty high target. Well, okay, so anything's high target, but you're basically assuming that if you neural something, the scan will come down. Oh, good EMP, good EMP. The scan will come down, and then you'll lose the Infestor. So the question is, what is the 1-for-1 trade? What is actually worth that 1-for-1 trade? The fungal did not hit. The snipes go down. We're down to 1 Broodlord and 16 Infestors, and the writing is on the wall. She taps out. Clem takes game 2 in this best of 3. Good lord. That was so much micro. To be honest, I saw this game, I think at like the 34-minute mark or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, obviously it's a very sick game, but I didn't actually see the ending. I didn't see all this micro. Absolutely crazy. Damn. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope my cat didn't take up too much space. Absolutely crazy game. But that led to a tied up series between the 2. And I suppose if you're interested in watching the completion of the series, you know, close the video now. Plug up your ears now. But what ended up happening throughout IEM Katowice is that this was, as I was saying, Clem and Scarlett's really last chance at redemption. They had to have won all of their games from here on out. Unfortunately, neither of them did. Clem did end up winning this series 2-1, but it was one of those, you know, this had to be the starting point, and he was very close to being able to bring it back, but some of the last series on that day did not go his favor. So yeah, damn. Be casting more replays from IEM Katowice, sometimes full series, sometimes single games, but I'm just hoping that, you know, I choose all the really enjoyable ones. Because I know some of them were on the main stage, but I didn't get to cast them. Some of them were on like the B or C streams, and I'm just kind of greedily wanting to cast them, and this was certainly one. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later for more, specifically Katowice replays. That's probably going to be coming up for the next like week or so. So see ya.